Begin at once to live and count each separate day as a separate life. Seneca. Most people focus on immediate results, chasing quick wins and instant gratification. They react to the world around them, patching problems as they arise, never truly understanding the underlying currents that shape their lives. This is the reactive mindset, the way of the loser. But there exists a different path, a strategic approach that sees beyond the surface, anticipates future challenges, and builds lasting success. This is the long view, the domain of those who understand that true victory is not achieved in a single moment, but through calculated moves and a relentless focus on the ultimate objective. The ability to think long-term is not some innate talent. It's a skill, a discipline, a cultivated mindset. It requires resisting the allure of immediate rewards, delaying gratification, and consistently prioritizing the actions that will yield the greatest benefit in the future. It's about understanding that every decision, no matter how small, is an investment in your future self. The short-sighted are constantly caught off guard, scrambling to adapt to unforeseen circumstances. They are like chess players who only see one move ahead, easily outmaneuvered by those who can visualize the entire game. Thinking long-term demands a shift in perspective. It's about seeing the world as a complex system, where every action has a ripple effect, creating consequences that extend far beyond the present moment. It's about identifying the patterns, understanding the trends, and anticipating the challenges that lie ahead. The reactive mindset is trapped in the present, constantly fighting fires. The strategic mind anticipates the fires before they start, building fire breaks and developing contingency plans. Those who adopt the long view understand the power of compounding. Just as a small amount of money invested wisely can grow exponentially over time, so too can small, consistent efforts in any area of life lead to extraordinary results. It's about focusing on the process, trusting that the results will eventually follow. The short-sighted chase instant fame, quick money, and fleeting pleasures. The strategic build lasting legacies, enduring wealth, and meaningful relationships. The long view also requires a degree of emotional detachment. It's about making decisions based on logic and reason, rather than fear or impulse. It's about recognizing that setbacks are inevitable, but that they are merely temporary obstacles on the path to long-term success. The reactive mindset crumbles under pressure, giving way to panic and despair. The strategic mind remains calm and focused, learning from mistakes and adapting to changing circumstances. Ultimately, embracing the long view is about taking control of your own destiny. It's about refusing to be a passive victim of circumstance and instead becoming an active architect of your own future. It's about understanding that the choices you make today will determine the life you live tomorrow. It's not always easy, but it is always worth it. The path of the long view is the path to enduring success, lasting fulfillment, and ultimately, a life lived on your own terms. It is the only way to truly win. The psychology of the long view is rooted in delayed gratification, a concept thoroughly studied and consistently proven to be a predictor of success across numerous domains. Individuals capable of deferring immediate pleasures for the sake of future rewards exhibit greater self-control, resilience, and a heightened ability to plan and execute long-term strategies. This isn't simply about willpower. It's about a fundamental difference in how the brain processes value and motivation. The short-sighted are driven by the immediate dopamine rush of instant gratification, while those with a long-term perspective derive satisfaction from the anticipation and realization of future goals. This difference in neurological reward pathways shapes behavior, driving the former towards impulsive actions and the latter towards calculated, strategic moves. A crucial element of this psychological framework is the ability to accurately assess risk and reward. This isn't about reckless gambling or blind optimism. It's about a clear-eyed understanding of probabilities, potential downsides, and the long-term consequences of various actions. Those with a long-term perspective are not afraid to take calculated risks, but they do so with a full awareness of the potential costs and benefits. They understand that every decision carries a degree of uncertainty, and they are prepared to adapt their strategies as new information becomes available. This requires a high level of cognitive flexibility and a willingness to abandon plans that are no longer viable. The short-sighted, on the other hand, often underestimate risk and overestimate reward, leading to impulsive decisions that ultimately undermine their long-term goals. Furthermore, the long view demands a certain level of emotional regulation. The ability to manage stress, anxiety, and frustration is essential for maintaining focus and clarity in the face of challenges. Setbacks are inevitable on any long-term endeavor, and those who are easily discouraged or overwhelmed by adversity are unlikely to persevere. The strategic mind understands that failures are simply opportunities for learning and improvement. They analyze their mistakes, adjust their strategies, and continue moving forward with renewed determination. This requires a degree of emotional detachment from the outcome, allowing for objective evaluation and rational decision-making. The short-sighted, driven by emotional reactions, tend to dwell on failures, allowing them to derail their progress and undermine their confidence. The capacity for abstract thinking is also paramount. The long view requires the ability to envision future possibilities, to create mental models of complex systems, and to understand the interconnectedness of events. This involves a shift from concrete, immediate concerns to abstract, long-term considerations. Those with a long-term perspective are able to see beyond the immediate circumstances and anticipate the potential consequences of their actions years, even decades, down the line. This allows them to make strategic decisions that maximize their long-term advantage, even if those decisions involve short-term sacrifices. The short-sighted, focused on the present moment, are unable to grasp the broader implications of their choices, leading to reactive behavior that ultimately limits their potential. The development of a strong sense of self-efficacy is also critical. Self-efficacy refers to the belief in one's own ability to succeed in specific situations or accomplish a task. Those with high self-efficacy are more likely to set challenging goals, persevere in the face of adversity, and ultimately achieve their desired outcomes. This belief in oneself is not based on arrogance or unfounded optimism, but rather on a realistic assessment of one's own strengths and capabilities. It is cultivated through a process of setting small, achievable goals, experiencing success, and gradually increasing the level of difficulty. The short-sighted, lacking in self-efficacy, are easily discouraged by challenges and tend to avoid situations that they perceive as too difficult. Finally, the psychology of the long view involves a fundamental understanding of the power of compounding, not just financially, but in all areas of life. This means recognizing that small, consistent efforts, repeated over time, can lead to exponential growth and extraordinary results. It's about investing in skills, relationships, and personal development, knowing that these investments will pay off handsomely in the long run. It also means avoiding short-term gains that come at the expense of long-term potential. The strategic mind understands that patience, persistence, and a commitment to continuous improvement are the keys to unlocking lasting success. The short-sighted, seeking instant gratification, often sacrifice long-term growth for immediate pleasures, ultimately limiting their potential and undermining their long-term happiness. Consider, for instance, the story of two ambitious entrepreneurs, both starting businesses in the same industry, with similar initial capital and opportunities. The first, driven by the allure of quick profits, focuses on immediate sales and marketing blitzes, neglecting the foundational elements of long-term sustainability. They chase every fleeting trend, jumping from one product to another, without building a strong brand or cultivating lasting customer relationships. Their strategy is reactive, constantly responding to market fluctuations rather than anticipating and shaping them. They prioritize short-term gains, often at the expense of ethical practices, cutting corners on quality and exploiting loopholes to maximize profits. Their employees are treated as expendable resources, hired and fired according to immediate needs, creating a culture of instability and disloyalty. Innovation is an afterthought, as they are too busy chasing the next quick buck to invest in research and development. This approach may yield initial success, attracting attention and generating impressive revenue figures in the short run. However, this success is often fleeting, built on shaky foundations that crumble under the slightest pressure. As competition intensifies, their lack of a distinct brand identity, coupled with their reputation for poor quality and unethical practices, leads to a decline in sales and customer loyalty. Their employees, disillusioned by the lack of stability and growth opportunities, seek employment elsewhere, leaving the company with a talent deficit. Eventually, the company struggles to survive, burdened by debt, lawsuits, and a tarnished reputation. The entrepreneur, burned out and disillusioned, blames external factors for their failure, failing to recognize the flaws in their own short-sighted approach. The second entrepreneur, in contrast, adopts a long-term perspective from the outset. They prioritize building a strong brand identity based on quality, integrity, and customer satisfaction. They invest in research and development, constantly innovating and improving their products and services. They cultivate lasting relationships with their customers, building trust and loyalty through exceptional service and personalized attention. They treat their employees as valuable assets, providing them with opportunities for growth and development, creating a culture of collaboration and innovation. Their strategy is proactive, anticipating future trends and positioning their company to capitalize on them. They understand that building a sustainable business requires patience, persistence, and a commitment to continuous improvement. They are willing to sacrifice short-term profits for long-term growth, knowing that this investment will pay off handsomely in the future. They focus on building a strong foundation, investing in infrastructure, technology, and talent. They are not swayed by fleeting trends or get-rich-quick schemes, but remain focused on their long-term vision. This approach may not yield immediate results, requiring significant upfront investment and a willingness to weather short-term setbacks. However, over time, their commitment to quality, innovation, and customer satisfaction leads to a steady increase in sales and brand loyalty. Their employees, motivated and engaged, contribute to a culture of innovation and excellence. Their proactive strategy allows them to anticipate and adapt to changing market conditions, giving them a competitive advantage. Eventually, the company becomes a leader in its industry, recognized for its quality, innovation, and ethical practices. The entrepreneur, fulfilled and respected, reaps the rewards of their long-term vision, building a legacy that extends far beyond their own lifetime. This illustrates the power of the long view, not just in business, but in all areas of life. It's about recognizing that true success requires a commitment to long-term goals, a willingness to sacrifice short-term gratification, and a belief in the power of compounding. The opposite of the long view is the trap. It's the illusion of immediate gratification, the siren song of quick wins that ultimately lead to ruin. It preys on impatience, on the desire for instant results, on the fear of being left behind. The trap is baited with promises of easy money, overnight success, and shortcuts to achievement. It's a glittering facade that conceals a deep and dangerous pitfall. Those who fall for the trap are often driven by emotion, by greed, envy, or desperation. They lack the discipline to resist temptation, the foresight to see the long-term consequences of their actions. They are easily swayed by hype and propaganda, by the illusion of a sure thing. They chase fleeting trends, invest in speculative bubbles, and gamble with their futures. The psychology of the trap is rooted in our inherent biases. We are naturally wired to prioritize immediate rewards over delayed gratification. This is a survival mechanism that served us well in the past when resources were scarce and the future was uncertain. However, in today's complex world, this bias can lead us astray. We tend to overestimate the likelihood of positive outcomes and underestimate the potential for negative consequences. We are also prone to confirmation bias, seeking out information that confirms our existing beliefs and ignoring evidence to the contrary. This makes us vulnerable to scams, Ponzi schemes, and other forms of deception. The architects of the trap understand these biases and exploit them to their advantage. They create a sense of urgency, scarcity, and social proof to manipulate our emotions and cloud our judgment. They promise the moon, but deliver only dust. Strategic thinkers recognize the trap for what it is: a distraction, a detour, a dead end. They understand that true success requires patience, discipline, and a long-term perspective. They are not swayed by hype or emotion, but make decisions based on logic, reason, and careful analysis. They understand the power of compounding, the importance of building a strong foundation, and the need to resist the temptation of instant gratification. They are willing to sacrifice short-term gains for long-term success, knowing that this investment will pay off handsomely in the future. They are not afraid to walk away from opportunities that seem too good to be true, knowing that there is always a hidden cost. They focus on building sustainable systems, cultivating lasting relationships, and creating value that endures. The long view allows you to see the trap from afar, to anticipate its dangers and avoid its pitfalls. It gives you the clarity to make sound decisions, the discipline to stay focused on your goals, and the resilience to overcome obstacles. It empowers you to build a life of purpose, meaning, and lasting impact. Those who succumb to the trap are often left with nothing but regret. They lose their money, their time, and their reputations. They damage their relationships, erode their trust, and undermine their future prospects. They learn a hard lesson, but often too late to recover. The trap is a cruel teacher, but a powerful one. It teaches us the importance of critical thinking, the value of patience, and the power of the long view. It reminds us that there are no shortcuts to success, and that true achievement requires hard work, dedication, and a commitment to excellence. It underscores the need to be skeptical, to question assumptions, and to always look beneath the surface. Because the allure of the quick win can blind you to the bigger picture, leaving you vulnerable to exploitation and ultimately failure. Avoiding the trap requires constant vigilance, a commitment to self-awareness, and a willingness to learn from your mistakes. The strategic player understands that the game is not about instant gratification, but about accumulating advantages over time. It's about playing the long game, building a strong foundation, and positioning yourself for lasting success. It's about seeing the bigger picture, understanding the interconnectedness of systems, and anticipating the long-term consequences of your actions. The Machiavellian approach recognizes that power is rarely given. It must be taken, cultivated, and defended. This requires a keen understanding of human nature, the ability to manipulate events to your advantage, and a willingness to act decisively when the opportunity arises. It's not about being inherently evil, but about being realistic, pragmatic, and effective. The world is not a fair place, and those who cling to naive ideals are often crushed by those who are not. The Machiavellian player understands this and acts accordingly, always seeking to maximize their power and influence, not for selfish reasons alone, but to achieve a greater purpose, to shape events in a way that aligns with their vision. This requires a level of detachment, the ability to see people as they are, not as you wish them to be. It means understanding their motivations, their weaknesses, and their vulnerabilities, and using that knowledge to your advantage. It is about understanding the system, the rules of the game, and exploiting those rules to achieve your objectives. The Machiavellian approach also involves a willingness to deceive, to misdirect, and to mislead when necessary. This is not about being dishonest for the sake of dishonesty, but about protecting your interests and achieving your goals in a world where others are constantly trying to do the same to you. Transparency can be a weakness, honesty can be a liability, and vulnerability can be an invitation to exploitation. The strategic player understands this and acts accordingly, always keeping their cards close to their chest, revealing only what is necessary, and always maintaining a strategic advantage. But the Machiavellian approach is not without its risks. It can be a lonely path, one that requires you to sacrifice relationships, betray confidences, and make difficult choices. It can also be a dangerous path, one that can lead to isolation, paranoia, and ultimately, destruction. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. The strategic player understands this and acts accordingly, always seeking to maintain a sense of balance, to temper their ambition with empathy, and to use their power for the greater good. It's about understanding that power is not an end in itself, but a means to an end, a tool to be used wisely and responsibly. It's about understanding that true power comes not from domination, but from influence, from the ability to inspire others, to motivate them, and to lead them towards a common goal. This requires a level of self-awareness, the ability to understand your own motivations, your own weaknesses, and your own vulnerabilities. It means being honest with yourself, acknowledging your limitations, and seeking to improve yourself constantly. It's about understanding that true strength comes not from arrogance, but from humility, from the willingness to learn from your mistakes, to admit your flaws, and to seek guidance from others. The Machiavellian player understands this and acts accordingly, always seeking to learn, to grow, and to improve, not just their strategic skills, but their character as well. They understand that true success is not just about achieving their goals, but about becoming the best version of themselves, about living a life of purpose, meaning, and integrity. Furthermore, a calculated approach demands a deep understanding of timing. Knowing when to strike, when to retreat, and when to remain patient is critical. Premature action can be as disastrous as prolonged inaction. The strategic mind carefully assesses the terrain, observes the opponent, and waits for the opportune moment. This requires discipline, the ability to control your impulses, to resist the urge to react impulsively, and to remain focused on your long-term objectives. It's about understanding that patience is a virtue, that opportunities often arise when you least expect them, and that the best way to seize those opportunities is to be prepared, to be vigilant, and to be ready to act decisively when the time is right. The long view also necessitates a constant reassessment of your position, a willingness to adapt to changing circumstances, and the flexibility to adjust your strategy as needed. The world is not static, and the plans that worked yesterday may not work today. The strategic player understands this and acts accordingly, always monitoring the environment, identifying emerging trends, and adapting their approach to stay ahead of the curve. This requires a level of intellectual curiosity, the willingness to learn new things, to explore different perspectives, and to challenge your own assumptions. It's about understanding that knowledge is power, that the more you know, the better equipped you are to make informed decisions, and that the best way to stay ahead of the competition is to be a lifelong learner. Ultimately, embracing the long view is about cultivating a mindset of continuous improvement. It is about recognizing that success is not a destination, but a journey, and that the key to lasting achievement is to never stop learning, never stop growing, and never stop striving to be better. This requires a commitment to self-discipline, the ability to set clear goals, to develop a plan of action, and to stick to that plan despite the inevitable obstacles and setbacks. It's about understanding that success is not easy, that it requires hard work, dedication, and perseverance, and that the only way to achieve your goals is to be willing to put in the effort. The strategic player understands this and acts accordingly, always pushing themselves to their limits, always seeking to improve their skills, and always striving to achieve their full potential. They understand that the long view is not just a strategy, but a way of life, a philosophy that guides their actions and shapes their destiny. It is a commitment to excellence, a dedication to purpose, and a belief in the power of the human spirit to overcome any challenge and achieve any goal. They understand that success is not about luck, but about skill, about preparation, and about the unwavering pursuit of excellence. It's about playing the game with intelligence, foresight, and an unyielding commitment to the long term. History provides countless examples of the long view in action, demonstrating its profound impact on the rise and fall of empires and the outcome of wars. Consider the Roman Empire, a civilization that rose to dominate the Mediterranean world through a combination of military prowess, political acumen, and a deeply ingrained sense of strategic foresight. The Romans understood that lasting power was not achieved through impulsive aggression or short-sighted gains, but through a calculated expansion of influence, a careful cultivation of alliances, and a relentless focus on building infrastructure that would support their ambitions for centuries to come. Their road system, for instance, was not merely a means of transporting armies and goods. It was a long-term investment in communication, trade, and the integration of conquered territories, fostering a sense of unity and shared purpose that contributed significantly to the empire's longevity. They understood the importance of assimilating conquered peoples, granting them citizenship, and incorporating their cultures into the Roman way of life, thereby creating a vast network of loyal subjects who were invested in the empire's success. This stands in stark contrast to empires that focused solely on exploitation and oppression, which inevitably faced rebellion and disintegration. The Roman approach to warfare was also characterized by a long-term perspective. While they were certainly capable of decisive military action, they also understood the importance of attrition, of wearing down their enemies over time, and of securing their gains through a combination of military force and political negotiation. They were not afraid to suffer setbacks and defeats, but they always learned from their mistakes and adapted their strategies accordingly, demonstrating a remarkable resilience and a willingness to play the long game. The Roman Empire's success was not simply a matter of luck or brute force. It was the result of a deliberate and consistent application of long-term thinking, a commitment to building a sustainable and resilient civilization that could withstand the test of time. The ability to learn from mistakes, to adapt to changing circumstances, and to maintain a clear vision of the future, even in the face of adversity, are all hallmarks of strategic thinking and are essential for achieving lasting success. The empire serves as a powerful example of how a long-term perspective, coupled with a relentless focus on building infrastructure and fostering a sense of unity, can lead to unparalleled power and influence. Their enduring legacy continues to shape our world today, a testament to the power of strategic planning and the enduring relevance of the long view. Conversely, history is replete with examples of empires and military campaigns that failed due to a lack of long-term vision. Napoleon Bonaparte, a military genius who conquered much of Europe, ultimately met his downfall because he lacked the strategic depth to consolidate his gains and build a lasting empire. His focus was primarily on military conquest, and he neglected the political and economic foundations necessary to sustain his ambitions. He underestimated the resilience of his enemies, particularly Great Britain, and failed to develop a comprehensive strategy for dealing with them. His invasion of Russia, a disastrous gamble that decimated his grand army, was a prime example of his short-sightedness and his tendency to prioritize immediate gains over long-term considerations. He was a brilliant tactician but a flawed strategist, and his inability to see the bigger picture ultimately led to his defeat and the collapse of his empire. Similarly, the Confederate States of America during the American Civil War fought valiantly for their independence, but their lack of long-term planning and their reliance on a flawed economic system ultimately doomed their cause. They failed to recognize the strategic importance of industrial capacity and infrastructure, and they underestimated the Union's ability to mobilize its resources and wage a protracted war. Their dependence on cotton exports proved to be a fatal weakness, as the Union blockade strangled their economy and deprived them of the resources they needed to sustain their war effort. They also failed to secure the support of foreign powers, who who were reluctant to back a cause that was increasingly seen as morally bankrupt. The Confederacy's defeat was not simply a matter of military inferiority. It was the result of a fundamental lack of strategic foresight and a failure to adapt to the changing circumstances of the war. The short-sighted focus on preserving their way of life, without considering the long-term consequences, led to their ultimate demise. These historical examples underscore the importance of strategic thinking and the dangers of prioritizing short-term gains over long-term considerations. A clear understanding of the broader context, a willingness to adapt to changing circumstances, and a commitment to building a sustainable foundation are essential for achieving lasting success, whether in business, politics, or military affairs. The ability to anticipate future challenges and opportunities is a crucial element of the long view. A strategic leader must be able to see beyond the immediate horizon and anticipate the potential consequences of their actions. This requires a combination of analytical skills, historical knowledge, and a deep understanding of human nature. They must be able to assess the strengths and weaknesses of their competitors, anticipate their moves, and develop strategies to counter their threats. They must also be able to identify emerging trends and technologies and adapt their organizations accordingly. This proactive approach to planning allows them to stay ahead of the curve and capitalize on new opportunities while mitigating potential risks. The strategic thinker is not simply reacting to events as they unfold. They are actively shaping the future to their advantage. This requires a willingness to take calculated risks, to experiment with new ideas, and to embrace innovation. But it also requires a disciplined approach to planning, a clear understanding of their objectives, and a commitment to staying the course, even in the face of uncertainty. The long view is not about predicting the future with certainty. It is about preparing for a range of possible outcomes and developing strategies to succeed in any scenario. This involves contingency planning, scenario analysis, and a willingness to adapt their strategies as new information becomes available. The ability to remain flexible and agile is essential for navigating the complexities of the modern world and for achieving lasting success in a constantly changing environment. The strategic leader understands that the future is not predetermined. It is shaped by the choices we make today. Moreover, the long view demands a focus on systemic thinking, recognizing that actions in one area can have ripple effects throughout the entire system. A decision made with only a narrow focus can have unintended and negative consequences elsewhere. Therefore, the strategic thinker must consider the interconnectedness of various elements and how they influence each other. This is especially crucial in complex organizations, where departments or teams might inadvertently work against each other if their goals are not aligned with the overall strategic vision. Systemic thinking involves understanding feedback loops, both positive and negative, and how they can amplify or dampen the effects of decisions. It requires identifying the root causes of problems rather than simply addressing the symptoms. For example, a company facing declining sales might initially focus on increasing marketing efforts. However, if the underlying problem is actually a decline in product quality, the marketing campaign will only provide a temporary boost and the issue will resurface. A systemic approach would involve investigating the entire product development and manufacturing process to identify and address the root cause of the quality decline. Furthermore, understanding the broader ecosystem in which an organization operates is crucial for long-term success. This includes considering the impact of their actions on customers, suppliers, competitors, and the environment. A company that prioritizes short-term profits at the expense of its customers or the environment will ultimately suffer in the long run. Building strong relationships with stakeholders and operating in a sustainable manner are essential for creating a resilient and thriving organization. The long view necessitates a holistic perspective, recognizing that everything is interconnected and that actions have consequences. This requires a commitment to understanding the entire system and making decisions that benefit the whole, not just a part. It's about seeing the forest for the trees and recognizing that true success lies in creating a sustainable and harmonious system. The psychology of taking the long view hinges on several key mental disciplines. Firstly, it demands a robust capacity for delayed gratification. Human beings are naturally inclined towards immediate rewards, a tendency rooted in our evolutionary past, where survival often depended on seizing opportunities as they arose. However, strategic thinking requires overriding this impulse, foregoing short-term gains for potentially greater rewards in the future. This necessitates a strong prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for executive functions such as planning, decision-making, and impulse control. Individuals with a well-developed prefrontal cortex are better equipped to resist immediate temptations and focus on long-term goals. Secondly, embracing the long view demands a high tolerance for uncertainty and ambiguity. The future is inherently unpredictable, and long-term plans are inevitably subject to unforeseen events and changing circumstances. Those who are uncomfortable with uncertainty may find it difficult to commit to long-term strategies, as they may be paralyzed by the fear of the unknown. Successful strategic thinkers, on the other hand, learn to accept uncertainty as a given and develop contingency plans to mitigate potential risks. This involves cultivating a mindset of adaptability and resilience, allowing them to adjust their plans as needed in response to changing conditions. Thirdly, the ability to take the long view is closely linked to emotional regulation. Emotional reactions, such as fear, anger, or excitement, can often cloud judgment and lead to impulsive decisions. Strategic thinking requires a detached and rational approach, allowing individuals to assess situations objectively and make decisions based on logic rather than emotion. This does not mean suppressing emotions entirely, but rather learning to manage them effectively and prevent them from interfering with the decision-making process. Techniques such as mindfulness and cognitive reappraisal can be helpful in regulating emotions and promoting a more rational perspective. Furthermore, the psychology of the long view involves a deep understanding of cognitive biases. Cognitive biases are systematic patterns of deviation from norm or rationality in judgment. These biases can distort our perception of reality and lead to flawed decision-making. For example, the confirmation bias leads us to seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs while ignoring evidence to the contrary. The availability heuristic causes us to overestimate the likelihood of events that are easily recalled, such as dramatic or recent events. The anchoring bias leads us to rely too heavily on the first piece of information we receive, even if it is irrelevant. By understanding these biases, we can become more aware of their influence on our thinking and take steps to mitigate their effects. This may involve seeking out diverse perspectives, questioning our assumptions, and using data to support our decisions. Moreover, developing a long-term perspective necessitates a commitment to continuous learning and self-improvement. The world is constantly changing, and the strategies that were effective in the past may not be effective in the future. Strategic thinkers must be willing to adapt to new information and update their knowledge and skills accordingly. This involves staying abreast of current trends, reading widely, and seeking out opportunities for professional development. It also requires a willingness to challenge their own beliefs and assumptions and to learn from their mistakes. Finally, the psychology of the long view is intertwined with a sense of purpose and meaning. Individuals who have a clear sense of purpose are more likely to be motivated to pursue long-term goals, even in the face of challenges and setbacks. A strong sense of purpose provides a framework for making decisions and prioritizing actions, ensuring that they are aligned with their overall values and aspirations. This can help to overcome the temptation to focus on short-term gains and to stay committed to the long-term vision. It's about understanding that the true measure of success is not just about achieving immediate results, but about building something lasting and meaningful. This requires a deep understanding of one's own values and a commitment to living in accordance with them. It means making decisions that are not only beneficial in the short term, but also contribute to a better future for oneself and for others. It also calls for an active approach to combating short-sightedness in others. The strategic advantage is not simply about personal enrichment. It's about constructing a world where long-term thinking is not a rarity, but a prevailing force. This involves actively identifying and supporting individuals and organizations that demonstrate a commitment to the long view, and challenging those that prioritize short-term gains at the expense of future consequences. It also requires fostering a culture of accountability, where decision-makers are held responsible for the long-term impacts of their actions. This means creating systems and structures that incentivize long-term planning and penalize short-sightedness. Ultimately, the psychology of the long view is a mindset that can be cultivated and spread. By embracing this mindset, individuals and organizations can create a better future for themselves and for generations to come. The long view is not a passive philosophy. It demands ruthless, calculated action. It requires the courage to make difficult decisions and to prioritize long-term goals over short-term gratification. It is a commitment to building something lasting and meaningful, even in the face of adversity. This commitment extends beyond individual actions. It requires a systemic approach to problem solving, where decisions are made based on a comprehensive understanding of the interconnectedness of various factors. It also requires a willingness to challenge conventional wisdom and to question assumptions. The long view recognizes that the world is a complex and ever-changing place, and that success requires adaptability and a willingness to learn from mistakes. Those who adopt the long view are not afraid to take risks, but they do so in a calculated and deliberate manner. They understand that setbacks are inevitable, but they view them as opportunities for growth and learning. They are persistent in their pursuit of their long-term goals, and they never give up hope, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Such individuals cultivate an environment that encourages critical thinking, creativity, and innovation. They understand that the best ideas often come from unexpected places, and they are open to new perspectives and approaches. They also foster a culture of collaboration and teamwork, recognizing that the collective intelligence of a group is often greater than the sum of its individual parts. By embracing the long view, individuals and organizations can create a virtuous cycle of success. They can build a foundation for sustainable growth and prosperity, and they can leave a positive legacy for future generations. This requires a willingness to invest in the future, even when the returns are not immediately apparent. It also requires a commitment to ethical and responsible behavior, recognizing that the